Or again, your identity is, where is it? You're trying to find it in who and what.
Most definitely.
And I think another thing that's important too, and I hear you saying that, Lindell, is even getting to the point where you are even self-aware enough to even ask that question, like, "Who am I? I need to do something." So, I'm always interested to know what was that defining moment that you just sort of woke up and even asked yourself those set of questions, like. What happened to say, I know I need to get from Atlanta back home? What happened when you said, I know I need to do something different? What were those defining moments? Because I think that's important, too, because there's a lot of people running around not even thinking about asking those questions. So
we call it, from a biblical narrative, and I told you guys I'm an ordained minister, too. It's when you come to yourself. You know, that's the prodigal son.
Yeah.
That epiphany.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
He came to himself. It's something that he's seen specifically that triggered, that he remembered. And likewise, it's something that triggered you, that pulled you back. I don't know if it was your grandmother's voice or whatever, but something.
She's
pulled
always
you.
praying.
What
She's
a mighty
always there.
blessing.
yeah, that's a blessing. to be able
Yeah.
to have that.
No, I think to answer that question was, again, you know, we're always in relationships, and many don't know. My followers now, they'll know. But yeah, I've been married twice, so before the age of 30. And again, when you're not sure of where to go and you don't know what to do with marriage or relationships, you'll still end up in one. You'll still end up in a place where you're like, oh, damn, how did okay, I'm in it. How far can I go with this? But what happened to me was just, again, looking in the mirror going, like, hey, oh, my bad. What happened for me, again, looking in the mirror, it was just going, all right, how different are you from when you were 21, now that you're 38? Are you still the same man? Are you still doing the same things, even if you're progressing, you know, from the outside? What's on the inside? What work has been done on the inside? If you ain't done no work, then...
Oh, sorry, I'm communicating with my engineer. Y'all go ahead.
Oh, okay. But yeah, you know, just that inner work. And for black men, we have to be so tough and so strong with nowhere to turn to. Like, how can we you know, elevate? How can we get to places that, and when you're saying resources, that just sticks out so much. Resources. So if we're in communities that have stripped, or we're stripped of our resources, or of those basic resources that can cater to mental health and educational system, and there's so many different benefactors. But again, in the midst of growing up, in whatever your atmosphere is, and you come of age, right, and you're just like, all right, hold on, I do have some things I need to deal with. I'm a married man now. I got some kids that, oh man, hold on, let me check myself. And then you go to therapy, and then you begin to, as you were saying, unpack. How much baggage do we have that we're willing to unpack around somebody that we trust?
That's the question. That's a deep question. But a lot of questions were asked, so I'm going to try to cover as many as I can. So the first question was, are you a person of color or are you a person of culture, correct?
Do you personally identify as color or culture?
So I have a mix. I'm in between, if you will. So I know I'm a person of color. I know on the census report I'm going to come across as black. But as far as the culture, I feel like our culture has been stripped. I'm now placed in a systematic post-slavement era where we're still trying to find who we are. Yes, we may have a career. Yes, I may have a family. Yes, I may get to see brothers ride down the street in a Rolls Royce in a suit. But culturally, I'm still locked. And, you know, I don't remember who said it, but it was like, I don't have to worry about a slave advancing because he does not read. Okay? So we're now in the system of, you know, 21st century where we're not reading. A lot of things are just sitting right there. And, you know, going through a lot of my studies, it really challenged me too. So along with, you know, child rearing coming up, I'm the oldest cousin of, on my grandmother's side, as far as the grandchildren, oldest boy. 35, so the next one's 25 under me. And, you know, it's crazy how God will switch things around. So you remember you would that child in question, looking, trying to seek and find yourself. And now I'm 35. I see my little cousins doing the same thing. But now we live in an area where you got to really watch what you say. When I came up, my grandmother, sisters and brothers, they cut it to you. We don't like this. This is what you're gonna do. This is it. Cut it to you. And this, you talk to a young man now, they want everything like really watered down, filtered to them in some type of, and it hurts, right? But they won't tell you they hurt. They're gonna tell their mom they hurt, and the message gets back to you. Mm-hmm. So my point is, despite the fact that they may have not liked some of the things I said, I still have to be that source to them. There was another question that came up too. How did you turn to help? Part of my turn to help again was like,
what was that defining moment?
Defining moment, I think for me is, I think when my oldest cousin, when she had her first child, that really hit home to me. Because I'm being honest with you, I was that type. I don't owe the community nothing. I'm from a small town. I want to afford my high school class, even get a bachelor's degree. I'm out, I'm done. So when my cousin had her first child, something about that made me come home and get involved. Something about that made me start questioning board of trustees and superintendents, and really start to get real critical in my thinking. Then along with doctoral studies, I started looking at different theories. One I'm very fond of is critical race theory. It's very deep. I'm sure some of the therapists know of CRT, but the first rule is that racism is normal. We go through a lot of racism every day. In your mind, you think this is how we're supposed to be treated. In reality, that's how we normally act. So, unpacking that, looking at my childhood, trying to be a light to my own cousins, and then my own upbringing, and then, being a dad and husband. Now, it's a lot to unpack. And in that time, I think I found a revelation where I need to, again, make sure I'm strengthened so I can strengthen others. And that has really caused me to open myself. Because 5 years from now, I wasn't open like this. Yeah, until I started seeing friends dealing with depression. I started talking to frat brothers, and they telling me, I'm mentally warped. Frat brothers telling me about, being out at sea and how things, they're dealing with stress and depression now. A lot of those conversations really lured me into going and get checked out, because I don't want to be that one riding down the street and then get that pressure in my chest and boom. But had I let those moments out, I could have maybe reduced that risk. So I'm more health conscious, more mental health conscious, and try to do things, even for myself, to just unpack and let it go. It's not hard. I mean, it's not easy, but I make more effort now than ever.
I want to go back to a point that you made, and you kind of followed up on it when you said that you could not, black men can't run to the church. Okay. So no. I understand what you're saying, but no, I'm gearing to support what you're saying from the standpoint of I can see that perspective for our millennials, and then those in my age group. I'm in my 40s, and it's not just limited to black men; it's black women in general. Because when we think about mental health, it's from the perspective of, okay, just go to church. I'm looking at it from this perspective: just go to church and pray it away. That is not, I mean, for some that may work, but to me, that should not be the response to a man who comes and says, I'm struggling. It should be, okay, let's look at how do you turn somebody outside, because not all pastors, this is another thing, not all pastors are trained therapists. You can give somebody counsel, but that doesn't mean that you're qualified from a mental health standpoint to counsel them in that area. And so you have a lot of, I feel like, men and women. I know you looking at me like, but you got to hear me out here, Dwight. You got to hear me out. You have to. You can, like I said, they can come to you for advice or whatever, have that pastoral meeting. But if you're not trained and licensed, I don't feel like you should be giving advice from a mental health standpoint of how this is how you are to deal with the issues that you're dealing with. I'm not saying that you don't go to them, but I hear what you're saying from the standpoint of that's not just a solution of just praying it away. And then some men don't feel comfortable because the environment, we're talking about it in church, because then they're shunned upon and they're looked at like, well, you ain't strong. You know, you spiritually ain't strong enough. The devil, everything is not the devil. We blame everything on the devil. Everything is not the devil. There's just things that happen in life that just happen. And you have to learn how to deal with it. It doesn't mean that it's the devil that's doing it. Half the time we create the issues that are in because of the choices that we made. We don't want to deal with that. We don't want to take responsibility for what we've done. So I'm just saying from that perspective, I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. I think so. Let me unpack that even. Let me unpack that even more. So even with like my journey, I've been lucky to like meet pastors who knew some of that. But my point is, if you walk up to the average black man, every time I've like just talked to like, cats out in the streets, it's like, oh, I've turned from the church, or oh, I've turned from this because I don't have nowhere to go. So everybody's not getting that one-to-one with that pastor. Everybody's not seeing professional black men, every day. I never forget, first time me and my wife went to Detroit. I went to Detroit. She's native, born and raised. And we cut down this block, and she was looking at me, and my eyes were like this. I mean, probably a foot wide. And she's like, what's going on? I'm like, you don't get it. She's like, what you mean? I'm like, you don't get it. I said, do you see all this blackness here? I said, do you see these people drive? Do you not see on every corner there's like a black business? Like I could ride down this street and motivate myself, as opposed to when you come from a small town, Lebanon, Muncie, you're not going to see that. So
Ben Harbor,
exactly. So even in everybody doesn't get a chance to see therapists or just sharp brothers like this. So sometimes you're looking for a feeling. You're looking for like a scab to cover up the scar because you don't have nobody to talk to. But like I say, as far as for me in the church, I have had pastors who've been able to help. But I can tell you for the average black man out here, they might not even be in church, or they've had some experience and it's turned them away from church.
Spiritually
or it goes
homeless.
to the extreme. They quote unquote come off the street, get saved, and they so far in the church that they don't see anything practical, and that's danger. That's a dangerous place to be in. There has to be a balance when you're talking about the mental health, and I see it. I see men who then quote unquote got saved, and they still ain't dealt with their trauma, but they so into the Lord gonna do blah blah blah. No, there's some practical things that you have to do. And George, you looking like you want to jump in and say something in response to what I'm saying. Go ahead.
This is his area, so
yeah, I love the energy in this room. I love the managed energy in this room. It was in 1998. I was pastoring a church up in Muncie, and speaking to developing a language and a framework and making it practical for young men, which the church was not doing, and then speaking to the ideal that some black men don't have the church to go to, and specifically black pastors that are trained. The pastors that come up during our time, they hooped, they hollered a lot, and yeah, they did what they needed to do. But going back to 1998, it was a young girl that came into the church, and at that time I was ordained, and I was pastoring this church, and I was not trained in mental health. And she come in, she was crying, and I asked her, I said, hey, I need to talk to you, Pastor Holland, da-da-da. I said, okay. What she told me, it just blew my mind, that interruption. Her grandfather, which was one of our deacons, was molesting her.
Man.
I didn't know how to respond to that outside of praying.
That's my point.
Right.
And so my point is this. I had to do something different. And I said, hey, I cannot continue to do pulpit ministry this way. And that's what kind of propelled me into go into this whole concept or this whole journey of mental health, because I needed a language, a narrative, to be able to give that young lady the narrative and the resources that she needed to deal with her trauma. And then also to deal with the vicarious trauma that I was experiencing from that. And so, yes, I get it. The other piece to that, and George, you might want to speak to it too, there is a movement going, it's a workshop, it's talking about undoing racism. And so when you're talking about... Pardon me?
The child advocates put on?
Correct. And I've went through that. I think George has gone through it. But one of the things that I found striking that I took away from there is that there's a maze that we're in. And in this maze that we as individuals that are educated, that are considered to be preachers and leaders of our community, we're only gatekeepers. I find that so... I can't cuss, right?
You can.
I find that so frustrating. And so finding that out